A beautiful afternoon to you, and thanks for joining us on Providence Television International. Jubilation on the streets of Bangladesh as Prime Minister resigns, flee country, and US personnel injured in fresh rock attack in Israel. My name is Edna Caesar Garrick. Welcome on board. And now to Bangladesh. The Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, resigned and fled to neighboring India on Monday after protesters stormed his official residence after weeks of dealing anti-government demonstrations in the Southern Asian nation. Jubilations erupted on the street and protesters celebrated the end of her 15th year in power by climbing on tanks and scaling an imposing statue of Hassini's father, independence leader Sheikh Mujibur Rahman in Dhaka. In a national address, Bangladesh Army Chief Waqar-ul-Zaman confirmed Hassini had resigned and said the military would form an interim government. Eyewitness accounts say flames were billowing from vehicles near Hassini's house, while protesters inside the building smashing walls and looting its content. Earlier in the day, the military and police had also attacked demonstrators rallying in the area. At least 91 people were killed and hundreds injured in clashes between police and protesters demanding the scrapping of quotas for government jobs and the resignation of the Prime Minister. Opponents argued the civil service job quotas were indiscriminatory. The death toll, which included 13 police officers, was the highest for a single day from any protest in the country's recent history. And now, several U.S. personnel have been injured in a suspected rocket attack against U.S. and coalition forces Al-Assad Air Base in Iraq. The attack comes amid extremely high tensions in the Middle East as the U.S. has been bracing for Iranian retaliation against Israeli over the assassination of Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran last week. Israel has not commented on the killing of Haniyeh. Hezbollah in Lebanon has also vowed retaliation in Israel after the assassination of one of its top commanders in Beirut less than a day before Haniyeh's killings. This comes just days after Austin ordered additional military assets to the region, sending a carrier strike group, a fighter squadron, and additional warship to the Middle East. U.S. officials have long blamed attack on troops in Iraq and Syria backed military groups. Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Sy said last month after a drone attack on Al-Assad that it was mostly carried out by Iranian supporters. And now to South Carolina, where 2 tornadoes have been confirmed so far in the Edson Beach and Seabrook Island as Tropical Storm Debbie brings heavy rainfall and gusty winds to the state. No injuries have been reported from either tornadoes. At Dayton Beach, about 50 miles southwest of Charleston, experienced a tornado at around 9:47 p.m. on Monday. The storm left down power lines and damages properties in its wake. Another tornado tore through Seabrook Island, about 25 miles southwest of Charleston at around 11 p.m. on Monday. A string of storm watches and warnings have been issued for Debbie's forecast path through Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina this week. As the storm treks around the southeast, it is expected to bring heavy rainfall, gusty winds, and isolated tornadoes. Flooding is also a major concern as the slow-moving storm hovers some areas, potentially dumping torrential rainfall. More than 174,000 homes and businesses are without power in Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina as Tropical Storm Debbie pummels the region. Floridians in the Big Bend, where Debbie made landfall on Monday as a Category 1 hurricane, are suffering the vast majority of outrages. About 134,000 Energies customers in the state are in dark. though Georgia and South Carolina have yet to see such widespread energy impacts. Outrage there are likely to increase as the storm rubbles across the state in the coming days. Several more days of torrential and hazardous storm conditions are in for southeast U.S. as tropical storm Debby cross across the region. Due to Debby's sluggish nature, some areas could be drenched by potential historic rainfall, total of 10 to 20 inches, with isolated amount of up to 30 inches. Catastrophic flooding is a significant concern across portion of eastern Georgia, the coastal plain of South Carolina, and southeast North Carolina. And moving on now, a Virginia man has been charged with making death threats against Vice President Kamala Harris and appeared in federal courts on Monday. The FBI found 4,359 posts from Carrillo's targeting various public officials, including Harris. In several posts, Carrillo's allegedly threatened to cut out Harris' eyes and describe various ways he wanted to kill the vice president. A number of similar posts are cited in court record with graphic and detailed threats against the vice president, as well as others, including on Islamophobic posts in 2023. Federal agents retrieved 2 firearms from his home, including a pistol he bought in 2023 and a rifle purchased this year. A hearing to determine whether Carrillo will remain behind bars while awaiting a resolution in his chaser has been set for Thursday. Rescuers in Gaza raced to dig victims from the rubble on Sunday after Israeli airstrike on 2 school buildings left at least 30 people dead. According to Palestinian civil defense, the strike continued a bloody weekend after a similar lethal attack on Saturday. Mahmoud Basal, spokesperson for the Palestinian civil defense, said majority of the bodies recovered have been women and children. Rescue operations continue in hopes that some people remain alive under the destroyed building, which has been serving as shelter for displaced families. The Defense Forces and the Israeli Security Agency have taken responsibility for the strike, saying that they were targeting terrorists. Responsible for the strike, saying that they were targeting terrorists operating inside Hamas command and control centers that were embedded with the school. The IDF did not respond regarding the numbers of Hamas members and civilians killed in the strike or whether civilians were warned of the strike in advance. If you are just joining us, this is the World News on Providence Television International. Away from the world news now, back to Nigeria. Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had a meeting with the head of security and paramilitary operative under the aegis of National Security Council behind closed doors. This is coming amidst the nationwide protest against hunger and bad governance in the country. The Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa led the service chiefs and other military and paramilitary heads to the meeting. Recall that President Tinubu in a recent national broadcast had pleaded with the organizers of the nationwide protest to suspend demonstration, especially as it has gone violent in some states with the attendant loss of lives and destruction of property. Finally, with 6 days into the planned 10-day-long hunger protest across the country, protesters have shunned some parts of Lagos and Kaduna states. Meanwhile, reports have it that the protest under the tag End Bad Governance in Nigeria has, however, witnessed a large presence of Nigerians in high numbers, especially the youth who have demanded that the President Bola Tinubu-led administration do all what he can to ameliorate the economic hardship. Also, business activities has resumed in most parts of Lagos and Benin Metropolis. With that, we've come to the end of the world news on Providence Television International. But before we go, a recap of some of our major stories. We brought you the report from Bangladesh, which says the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina resigned and fled to neighboring India on Monday after protesters stormed her official residence after weeks of dealing anti-government demonstrations in the South Asian nation. Jubilation erupted on the street and protested celebrated the end of her 15th year in power by climbing on tanks and scaling an imposing statue of Hasina's father, independence leader Sheikh Mujibur Rahman in Dhaka. And also 2 tornadoes have been confirmed so far in South Carolina's Edisto Beach and Seabrook Island as tropical storm Debbie brings heavy rainfall and gusty winds to part of the state. No injuries have been reported from either tornadoes. Edson Beach, about 15 miles southwest of Charleston, experienced a tornado at around 9:47 p.m. on Monday. The storm left down power lines and damaged properties in its wake. Edna Cesar Garrick is my name. Thanks for watching and good afternoon.